Hello, I'm Neil Whelan, and welcome to the Wesleyan Podcast. In this episode, brought to you by Wesleyan Financial Services, one of our specialist financial advisors for dental professionals, Paul Barnfather, is chatting to Connor Bryan from Carter Bond Solicitors. Together, they talk about the issues surrounding NHS contracts when principal dentists start planning for their retirement. As always, this podcast is for information only and doesn't constitute financial or business advice. But if you would like that, I'll be back at the end to tell you how to get in contact with Wesleyan Financial Services to get all the advice you need. And with that, I'll hand you over to Connor. And first up, Paul.
Welcome, Connor. Do you just want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah. So thanks for having us on the podcast anyway. And my name's Connor and I work in Carter Bond Solicitors. So on the day-to-day, you can find me dealing with dental practice transactions. So I'll be dealing with sales and purchases, whether that be an asset purchase or whether someone's purchasing a company. I'll deal with CQC applications, and mainly I will deal with NHS retirements with assistance from financial advisors such as yourself. I just ensure that NHS contracts are protected when clients decide to action the retirement benefits.
Brilliant. I guess it's really important that people understand the implications of retirement and the effect that it has on the contract. So when it does come to that, Connor, is there anything in your opinion that the majority of your clients aren't aware of, or is there a regular question that you get asked?
So I think with the majority of my clients, they're mainly principals who've got NHS contracts in their sole name. And one thing that most of them don't realise is when they do want to cash out their pension benefits early, that they have to come off the contract for 24 hours. And in practice, that is more difficult and complicated than it just sounds. You know what I mean? So when they submit the pension forms, a notification is then sent over to their ICB or NHS local area team, if you'd like to call it, saying that we need to close them down for the contract on such and such a date as per the pension forms, and they need to come off the contract. Now, usually what will happen is the NHS will come back to them and say, you need to seek legal advice because we can't take the main contractor off the contract and leave it unmanned for any length of time, never mind 24 hours. Either that or they will agree to terminate the contract. So it's sort of a risky position when you're submitting your pension forms as a principal without being represented from a legal point of view and obviously a financial point of view.
So Connor, what would happen if a contract was terminated and the individual who was the contract holder wasn't aware that was going to happen? Is there any implications from that side?
Yeah, so the usual position would basically be that the NHS would come back and decline the request rather than issue a termination notice for the contract. So the two options would be they'd either come back and say, no, you're not allowed to action your retirement because obviously you'll have to come off the contract and therefore it would be unmanned for a certain period of time, or they would proceed with the request and then obviously terminate the contract, therefore putting it back out for tender. So while I myself haven't experienced anyone having a contract terminated, it is known in the industry that people have had this done before, and this is why it is important to have someone looking after your interests from a legal standpoint and making sure that contract is protected. So when I said at the start of the call that I'm head of retirement at Carter Bond Solicitors, I'm mainly the head of contract protection. Do you know what I mean? Because that is the process, 24-hour retirement. But my capacity as a legal advisor will be to ensure that contract survives the break in service that the client needs to take in order to facilitate the release of funds.
I guess there's a small potential element of protection there, but it's not foolproof in that sense. So, like you said, it's unlikely that it would just be terminated, but potentially it could happen, which from a client's perspective is potentially a loss of value in that contract on a sale value as well, isn't it, in that regard?
Yeah. So if, let's say, the worst comes to the worst and they terminate the contract, then you're going to lose a massive chunk of income that the practice is receiving each month, because obviously NHS contracts are paid in instalments each month, and some of these run into the tens of thousands each month, and obviously we're having staff wages and all kinds of overheads. Losing that contract massively damages your business for one, and obviously your income stream to be able to float the practice. And there's obviously fancy footwork in place that we transfer contracts because you can't actually sell them. But yeah, ensuring that it is protected just protects your best interest, keeps the income coming through the practice, and just ensures you can go back to work following release of your pension benefits.
So what would be the best way that that someone could mitigate, potentially all these negative things happening with the contract at that point of retirement? What suggestions would you make to clients?
So in terms of the actual process to action a 24-hour retirement, it would be speaking to someone like yourself first, financial advisor, and then you giving them the advice to cash out the pension pot for whatever reason. And then with them being a contractor, we would then need to approach the local area team and say, we want to take a 24-hour retirement, but to protect the contract, we're going to bring on such and such a person who is a registered dentist, and they're going to be the name that sits on the contract for the 24-hour period that they take the break. And then following that, we would add the client back on and then remove the incoming partner. So usually we would do it over a weekend, and we would create a partnership between the dentist who wants to retire and then this other third party. We would remove our clients on the Saturday, therefore being their 24-hour retirement and allowing the pension pot to come to them and be released. And then we would add the client back on the Sunday, and then on the Monday we would then remove the third party, the incoming dentist who is protecting that contract for the period of the retirement. So yeah, that's just one method of doing it, and we can obviously make indefinite partnerships where someone stays on the contract, and there's a different sort of process that needs to be followed if the contract is in the name of a limited company. So there's quite a few scenarios that need to be navigated, and obviously that's why it's best to have someone in your corner who does it every day.
Absolutely, yeah, of course. That's if my tooth hurts, I'm going to go to the dentist. I'm not going to ask my friend in the pub. It's what's the best thing to do.
Well, it's whether you can get an appointment.
So once this mini partnership or initial partnership has been formed, how can the original contract holder, I suppose, make sure that the new person doesn't benefit from the contract, and they lose out, or that the new person is held responsible for any clawback or breaches on the contract?
Yes, so the way that we usually deal with is we will put a nominal partnership agreement in place, which basically vests all of the goodwill, the responsibility of the practice, the delivery of the UDAs on the shoulders of the client who is retiring, and therefore in the share split section of the partnership agreement, it would be the lowest nominal point that we could allocate to the other party, and it would be written in a way where it's not a foolproof situation where, as in, like, on paper, yes, they're technically still liable, but because it's only live for a 24-hour period and all the goodwill is vested into the original partner, we can sort of mitigate that sort of risk for that person. We usually do suggest that they seek legal advice, but I've been doing these for the last couple of years and seeing them go through every weekend, I've never had a problem with a situation the income partner. Do you know what I mean? They're more or less shielded, and they're only on the contract for a brief period anyway, and then we would seek to remove them straight after. We would make a more in-depth partnership agreement if they were looking to stay on following completion of the retirement, but it's sort of a dummy partnership that we put in place just to facilitate the release of the client's pension.
So that sounds like obviously it's something really important that needs to happen, and it's something that you wouldn't really want to try and activate yourself. You need to bring someone like yourself on board, Connor, don't you? Who's well versed with the ins and outs of the process and what needs to be done.
Yeah, of course. Only because when a party is added to an NHS contract, there's no financial. How do I put this? It's if the other party was added to the contract and they wanted to remove your client who's doing the retirement, and they had the right notices drafted and ready to go, they'd be well in the right to do so, and they'd therefore take off a contract which is paying X amount of thousand a month from your client unnecessarily. Do you know what I mean? Not saying that would happen, but theoretically that is a possibility. So it's all about putting the right legal protections in place at the outset to ensure before the process is fully actioned, your client who is retired and is fully protected, and as much as can be, the income partner is also protected. Do you know what I mean? It's having all the right papers in place before we embark on the process, because like I say, it's all up in the air. There's nothing stopping the income partner coming on the contract on the Friday, submitting a notice to remove the the person who's retiring on the Saturday, and then they've just got that contract. Do you know what I mean? So it's just covering all bases. We are a distressed purchase as lawyers, but it's something that you need in place, especially if you want to sell the practice in the future as well, because one of the key questions of the due diligence questionnaire, when the buyer asks questions, is what has happened to the contract in its lifespan? Have you made any changes to it? And having no paperwork or no paper trail for this random Joe Bloggs off the street being added to your contract, it raises questions, the bank has questions, and then it leads to inevitably delays. Do you know what I mean? So it's just good to have the paper trail. It's like having a receipt or a service history for the contract, if you want to put it that way.
Sounds like super important to make sure all the changes have been documented and records kept for that side of things. So obviously you're the specialist on the legal side of things and making changes to contracts, but so how do you think that the support of someone like myself, dental specialist financial advisor, could be beneficial to that client, before and during and after the changes of the contracts and the retirement have taken place?
Yeah, so obviously it's completely essential, because what a lot of clients don't realise is a financial advisor isn't under the same umbrella as their accountants. So their accountant will not give you the in-depth advice that you would give on how to utilise them funds and obviously plan and strategise for the future. So most of my work comes from yourself, doesn't it, of course, and referrals, because the clients are in a position to cash out that pension pot, and then it's when you need me then to protect the contract, and then following retirement, that's when you'd step back in and obviously strategize for the future following that. And then as we know, following retirement, most clients are already 1 foot in the door and they're ready to sell, aren't they? So then it's obviously planning with the funds from the sale and then going from there. And obviously it's imperative to have a financial advisor in your corner, because although, yes, I can deal with the legal side of things, I can't comment on the financial side, and obviously vice versa. So it's sort of a partnership between ourselves, isn't it, really, and giving the client the full package experience.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that, Con. I mean, we all do our jobs in I suppose, quite a niche, unique area, don't we? So
yeah.
Legal side for you, the financial planning side for me, and I always, if the client gets the accountant involved as well, because the accountant does their tax side of things, which obviously we can all work together and make sure that the most efficient outcome is received by the client. But I think from today, Connor, that's been really insightful for people, and it's been a great conversation to have with you. I'm looking forward to having many more in the future.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks for having me.
And that's our show for this week. Thank you to Paul and Connor. If you are looking for expert financial advice, go to wesleyan.co.uk, where you can book a no obligation appointment with a Wesleyan Financial Services specialist financial advisor. You can also find out more about Wesleyan more generally on Twitter/X, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And if you found the podcast useful, you can like and subscribe to us on all the usual platforms, as well as find us on YouTube, where there's a whole library of videos covering a wide range of financial planning topics. That's it for now. So until next time, thanks for listening.